about oral recitation, which we will be using this semester, along with explication de text to get at the riches of the text. When you read aloud, when you focus on very seemingly minute elements of the text you're looking at, you get more riches out of it. You can dig deeper and really get at the meat of the text. So let's proceed. Let's look at a poem as an example by Robert Frost. It's entitled The Span of Life, and it's a very short poem. It's only 2 lines. You notice that the first line is very long in comparison to the second line, which is short. And it's kind of reiterated in that title, The Span of Life. The sound of span is makes your mouth go very wide, so it feels like it's longer, whereas the second word, life, is short, bright. It's the long I sound. And, Robert Frost is no dummy. I mean, he's thinking the title reiterates what you're going to read in the poem, which is this incredible telescoped contrast between length of life and youth, age and youth, and what we can learn from comparing them in this very telescoped way. We're going to look at an old dog and a young dog, a little pup, and we're going to talk about scansion and how being aware of scansion and how the poem sounds, and I'm going to fix that there, can help us with the meaning of the poem. The analysis and visual representation of a poem's metrical pattern. It's very technical, but as with all things technical, it helps us to do other wonderful things. So you look at words, you look at accented and unaccented syllables. The accented is backslash, represented by a backslash. The unaccented will represent with a U. And having your ear attentive to the accent, and the accent can help you to understand what words are in the most important words and how the changing of accent and unaccented can lead you into a different mode or mood in the poem. Each poem has different what are called feet, and the feet are based on a regular accented and unaccented pattern. There's these terms are Greek, and they each represent, by the way you pronounce them, the actual accented, unaccented pattern that they represent. So I am is, in its very sound, unaccented, accented. Anna pest is, in its very sound, unaccented, unaccented, accented. Spondy is both syllables are accented. Do you see? And poets can, as well as other writers, want to think about how the use of these accented, unaccented feet can help them as they write to get across their meaning. So we have how many feet, how many of those patterns are, sets of those feet are in the line. And pentameter, penta is 5, tetra 4, tri 3, etc. So there's 5 feet, 4 feet, etc. And in English, the iambic pentameter, 5 of the unaccented, accented feet is one of the most popular meters in English because it just simply goes better with how we accent words, our line lengths, our syntax, etc. So let's just look at this poem in terms of scanning it, in terms of looking at the accented, unaccented. And already when you look at that, you see that the first line, the longer line, has these 4 accented syllables in a row, which is highly unusual for poetry, which means, hey, listen up. You better, reader, you better pay attention to this. Also, there's no real set pattern. There's no regular scan meter here. Whereas in the second line, after you get past this first backslash or accent, you have anapestic. the unaccented, unaccented, accented, unaccented, unaccented, accent, etc. So what does that tell us about being an older pup and a younger pup? The old dog barks backward without getting up. I can remember when he was a pup. Just sounding that out tells you that the old dog has had a long life, it's a tired life, now an awkward life because his body doesn't move in the same way it moved before because there's pain, because there's memory loss perhaps, and the irony that, it has more to remember but may not remember it in the same way that the little dog is jumping around. I can remember when he was a pup. The very sound that trips off your tongue captures what it's like to be a pup. It's quick, it's jumpy, it's happy, it's smooth. And you've got these three, this trimeter, which is a more of a abrupt, happy, light kind of line. And then just listening to the vowel sounds in that first line can make you realize something else about the old dog. So you say the old dog bar bat or without e up. The variety of vowel sounds there to me suggests the length of life and the many different experiences that the dog has had to go through. And they aren't smooth. Your mouth has to go through a lot of different gyrations to say that out loud. And then add the consonant sounds of the repeated B and the K sound, and your mouth, when it says those accented, 4 accents, barks backward, is barking. Your mouth has to bark to say that. So it's harsh, it's slow, it's tired, there's length there, a lot of variety, a lot of ups and downs that the dog has to go through. And then you think about the second line. I can remember when he was a pup, how much easier the sound is, how much smoother it is. You've got the M sound, which is one of the most pleasurable, sweet sounds, along with the L sound in the language, in contrast to the ba and the sound of the first line. So you already get this sense of the harder life for the older dog because it has experienced so much, and the young upbeat, and you got that word up to end the line, is so joyful and optimistic. Then just saying those lines out loud can also help us get at a lot to do with imagery. And so kinesthetic, we get the movement or the lack of movement. The old dog isn't moving at all, and we get that contrast between the first line and the second line. The first line is moving like molasses because it's like the dog, it's slow, and there's so many vowels to get through, and that harsh B and K sound, whereas a young dog is just smoothly moving up and down and all around because its bones aren't in pain, and its muscles aren't missing the energy that the older dog. I'm beating a dead horse or a dead dog here perhaps, but I want you to pay attention to these kinds of choices that the poet has to make. We get the visual of the head turning back, which is very awkward and old, but the dog kind of has to do that because getting up and jumping every second of the day is just going to really make the old dog have a lot of pain and suffering. The oral, the barking sound, is old and harsh. The skittering of the puppy, perhaps. The touch, the fur on the dog, the coarse grayness of the old dog, the soft newness of the puppy's fur. The smell even, we can perhaps even smell the smelliness of an old dog and the sweet smell of the new pup here. And then you want to think about diction and word choice and why it's so important to choose the right word. And so one way to test why a word is really important is to switch in another word to see how well it would work. So, for example, you can say aloud, the old dog barks backward without getting up. He was real frisky when he was a pup. Now, it may seem like that gets the same exact meaning, but switching out the word I shows you how important I is. Suddenly, it isn't the dogs that we're talking about. We're talking about the human being that owns the dog and that is remembering what it was like to be young with the dog and who has grown old with the dog and who's probably older than the dog. That I is consciousness, thought patterns, emotions, remembrance are what is at the center of this. That I is also looking backward and remembering and having memories and thinking about the ups and downs of their own life. So thinking about the word choice, I would suggest to you that the I is the center of the poem, that the human consciousness that's writing the poem, that's thinking about the dogs, is thinking about what life means. What is the span of life? What is it meant for? Why are we young and it's quickly gone, and then we're old and it feels like it goes on forever in pain and suffering? Is it worth it? What is a human life? What is it for? And I think these things are to be gathered more easily if you read aloud, so that you can capture what does it feel like to read a line that's long. Syntax is how long a line is, the word order of the line, the punctuation of a line, of a sentence. And when we have to read it aloud, we can start getting at that. And it should actually, when you read a line, it should, through syntax, symbolism, tone, imagery, it should represent what it is, at least subliminally. Your body and your mind should be feeling that as a reader. Tone. You can really get at this when you read it aloud. Is this a poem to be read with happiness, with joy, with laughter? Or is it sad? Is it bittersweet? Or is it both? And how do you have to say that to capture that? And what does it suggest about the span of life? That it is a rich and nuanced thing that cannot be pinned down. It is beautiful, it is up, but it is also backward. And but it is part of the human life to remember and to look back. So I hope that this has been helpful for you as a model to see what you can do and what you can learn by reading a text aloud and paying attention to every element of the text as you're reading. Please let me know if you have questions, and I look forward to working with you on explicación de text and oral recitation. Thank you.